Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I want to talk about everything that goes into planning a creative project and the specific steps that I use every single time on both client and personal work to make sure that shoot day and the editing process are super seamless and everything else goes smoothly. Now, I don't want to bore you. There are a bunch of pre-production videos out there, a bunch of planning videos out there talking about creative processes. In this video, the special thing is that I'm going to show you the exact template that I use every single time. And not only that, I'm going to make that template completely available for free down in the description below. The template down below is available through My LUTs, the sponsor of today's video, but rest assured it's completely free. You don't have to pay for anything. You can go ahead and click the link down below, download it, tweak it, and it should be pretty useful. And if you're new to this channel, my name is Gaku. I'm a creator based out of Tokyo, Japan. I create dynamic social campaigns for brands, and I also post about it regularly here on YouTube. So if you're interested in that sort of content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. All right, let me break down my pre-production process. So this is my My LUTs template, and at the end of this video, I'll make this available for free again. I'll remove all these example texts, so you can just go ahead and download this and it'll be an open slate. And you can go ahead and tweak and add whatever you'd like to add. So I'm just gonna go ahead and break this down step by step and show you how I fill this out for every single project. I love My LUTs because it's a super visual way to organize everything. A lot of times if you just use text-based or note-based applications, it's difficult to visualize your entire shoot. And this is just a streamlined process of how I go ahead and plan all of my shoots. So over here, I have everything laid out from left to right. And the key thing here is that I like to basically make sure that everything is streamlined and easily referenceable so that when I need to go back and see a specific note or see a specific item, I can quickly find it and not have to fiddle around with going through like multiple pages. So this is just an example I've pulled from an AirAsia American Tourister video that I did recently. And the first thing I like to do is I actually like to go ahead and just copy and paste some general notes about a campaign. So this Fun Seekers campaign, I just copy and pasted some important notes from the overall client brief. And these are just some things to keep in mind as I go throughout the process, just keeping them in the back of my head so that I know that these core elements are visible throughout the entire project. I like to go ahead and click and drag and add PDFs and add briefs or page files to this so that I can go ahead and download this. Or if I share this with anybody on my team, they can go ahead and download these directly from this My LUTs, and I don't need to add like any additional attachments and emails, etc. I like to keep this section just for reference as I'm planning. Typically, one of the first things that I like to do when I'm going through a planning period is I'd like to go ahead and create both inspiration and storyboards. Here I have two boards that are basically subboarded into this inspiration storyboard section. First, I have this photo inspiration area. And a lot of times what I like to do is I like to get reference shots. And so this was, I think, for a Nike campaign I did a couple years ago. And I wanted to have a couple references. It was a duo and solo shoot. So I have two separate sections here, one of solo shot references and another one of duo shot references. And the great thing about My LUTs is that let's just say I have a couple images that I want to add to this board in particular. Maybe you have some screenshots that you found. All you have to do is just click, drag, and add them, and they just propagate just like that. And you can size them however you want to size them. I typically just like to get some interesting references of posing. And so here are a couple like posing references that I have from various campaigns that I've pulled that I really like. And I'll use these on shoot day as references. Sometimes I like to print this out. Other times I just use a My LUTs app and just reference this on shoot day or have it on an iPad. And below here, I just have some duo shots. Again, these are just some reference images of various posing. I like to have posing kind of in mind before I go ahead and go and shoot for stills in particular. Also, I mean, for video as well. Sometimes you work with friends or people who maybe aren't as comfortable behind the camera. A lot of times I like to pull out these visual references for people to take a look at, and visual references are the best way to show people exactly how you want them to pose. And for stills, super useful. For video as well, also really useful. Some of these references are actually from my own previous campaigns. This is from a Babe shoot. And this is also from a previous Nike shoot that I did a while back. And I like to pull references from my own work too. It's not just about finding other photographers that you're really inspired by. Sometimes it's just going back into your old archives and finding things that work for you. For photo inspiration, that's typically how I get everything organized. For mood boards or storyboards, I like to create a board. This is kind of a rough way of how my brain works. This is for a Lenovo campaign that I did a while back. What I like to do is I like to click and drag and add notes and little text blurbs that I can go ahead and move really easily. And I like to organize this just by first talking about my concept. So the idea was to create a visual story. I think from here, the comforts of your studio, going out into the actual world. In this case, it was the Tokyo cityscape. And so here I have a bunch of tone references for my shoot day. These are a bunch of references I found from Frameset that I just screenshotted and added here as references for a shoot day. And then I have a rough shot list that I like to go ahead and click and add GIFs or GIFs. And I like to add different movements, different transitions that I'll have. A lot of times I like to do a rough shot list and not actually shot list every single shot that I have in mind, because sometimes if I feel like your shot list is too detailed, it can actually hinder you on shoot day because you're so stressed out with getting every single shot, every single particular shot. What I like to do is I actually like to get a rough shot list. So for instance here, I'll begin the short video with flash cuts, 5 angles of myself in my room, and then do a slide transition. So I already know what a slide transition is. If I need a reference, I'll just click and drag that here. And for the flash cuts, I have this reference GIF here, but I know typically what are some cool angles, and the angles that are particularly relevant to this scene or wherever I'm shooting sometimes changes. Oftentimes I like to work in small crews, small run and gun crews. If you have the exact angles, that's super helpful, but a lot of times I just use like general rough shot lists. So I've got my introduction here. I like to use the draw tool to kind of like doodle. And as you can see here, I just drew boxes around the introduction. I just separated the shoot from the studio section to the outside section. And you can just draw and save these, and then later you can just move these doodles around. Super useful. I've gone from my introduction here to then cut to a few different static movement shots with ambient sound. And I'm not gonna bore you with all the details of this particular shoot. This is just to show you that you can get as detailed or kind of as vague as you'd like, whatever works for you. For me, I don't like to shot list. For me, in certain projects, I need everything shot listed out. For other more creative, personal projects, I don't shot list every single shot out. And that just works for me. Whatever works for you, it's super easy. You can pull and drag GIFs, or you can even drag videos like this. You just click and drag just like photos, and the videos are super easy to just click and play. And when you're planning and figuring out what works, this is another way to drag references into your shot list. You can go ahead and propagate this with anything that works best for you. Typically, I like to keep it as minimal and as streamlined as possible. So on shoot day, when I'm actually going ahead and referencing this, I'm not confused about where I'm looking. Here's another quick example of a storyboard that I created this time. This is for Fashion Snap and Adidas that I did last year. Again, I just have some references and some reference videos, some stills in terms of angles that I wanted to capture for my final video. And here I just have a basic flow or mood of the actual video. I'm gonna start out with some interactive opening details. After these opening details, I have a transition reference. I have another transition reference. Then I have another transition reference and a couple other transition references here just to help me on shoot date remember what exactly it is I need to capture. In between this, it's all detailed shots. So again, I already know this, I already know how to shoot detailed shots, and I'm not quite sure about the location. So for this, I just needed the transition references to keep in the back of my mind as I went ahead and shot this video. So once I've got these two sections done, I also like to add, if I have any sort of music in the back of my mind for video projects, I'll just go ahead and add this. Again, you can click and drag any WAV or MP3 files, and you can actually play this in Milanote. That's a super key feature if you're doing video. I like to plan my shoots around an audio source, and having this in here just helps me keep organized. This next section is integral for me because I'm such a forgetful person. I like to have everything or list everything that I'm needing for shoot date on this Milanote. And as I'm packing, all I do is I just click and check off this checklist to make sure that I have everything in my bag so I don't forget anything. This is super key, especially when you're doing everything on your own. For photo, I always start out with a camera body. I do any sort of like lenses or adapters that I need. And then I obviously do like my flash kit, or if I need any sort of diffusion. Video, same thing. I'm gonna do my video camera, lenses, my gimbal, very key, the cage, maybe some BTS elements. I almost forgot, I love adding this. This is key. How many times have you gone on a shoot and you've forgotten your SD cards? It's terrible. There's just different things that you can add that if you're a really forgetful person like I am, just clicking this off is amazing. So this is for gear. And then below that, I have another to-do list because I mean, it's just better to have these things in the back of your mind so you don't mess this up on shoot day. Again, some things I like to do: charge my batteries, load my SD cards into the case, key, pack a VND, pack your step-up rings, and then double check either with a producer, or if you're doing this by yourself, double check timing with talent. I always like to send talent. This goes in the next section here. Send anybody who's a part of your shoot. You want to send them this board and you want to include any sort of important information. So meeting location / time here. I've just got a Google Maps link. If you just click and drag a Google Maps link, it'll propagate and it'll actually show you the exact pin that you want to add for reference. And you can go ahead and add a meet time so that everybody knows exactly what time and where to meet up. The next thing I like to do is I like to go ahead and add any sort of like shoot date info. This is more for like larger productions, and in terms of like, you have like call sheets and different things that typically a producer will make. If you have a producer that's a part of your shoot, you can go ahead and add this. This is just like a more detailed shot list, basically. This is information for a production team or a client. This is super typical for larger productions. This shoot that I did for American Tourister, we had a call sheet. So I just like to click and drag this into my Milanote board. And then I like to go ahead and add just a really brief timeline. This again was from the Fun Seekers shoot, and we just kind of broke down basically a rough timeline of the shoot date. We had location here, and then we had basically, I like to generally know how much time I'm giving myself for each specific section. So for this opening scene here with Heap, we had basically 90 minutes. And I told myself basically, if I don't have everything finished within 90 minutes, I don't want to spend that much extra time getting specific shots. I want to make sure I get the main shots within this time frame. And then if I have extra time, I can go ahead and go in and let's say like get additional beauty shots or get even more creative angles or transitions. I like to give myself a general estimate in each location as I go on shoot date of what I need. I also kind of like list out the main shot or scene that I have to capture 100%, and then I'll go from there. This simple timeline is great if you have anybody else like an assistant or BTS or other people in your crew, just to also, again, reference and keep you on your toes. Tsubasa for this shoot, he did a great job of getting me through each of these sections by reminding me if I had all the essential shots, and if I didn't, to either hurry up and get it or just forget about it and move on and figure it out in the next location. And then finally here, I just have basically, I've screenshotted a Google Calendar kind of like month. And when I'm working on a project, I like to go ahead and kind of like highlight specific dates. So S typically for me is like the shoot date. I need to start editing on this date, March 7th here. And then I thought these were just scribbles, but this is never mind. This is V1, V2. So here I've highlighted kind of like when I need to start editing. I've got my V1 that's due, kind of like key dates. This is like final, have to finish by. I like to just draw, let's say like, I don't know, any sort of like key dates. I just like to have these and just draw on this Google Calendar. That's just an easy way for me to visualize like what day we're at. You can even, if you want, you could just like check off the dates as you get closer. Whatever makes your life easier to like visualize stuff. I like to have a calendar in each project because then I know like the project has its own timeline and I don't have to like go between my other calendars and fiddle around and figure out where we are. I have every kind of like key date in my calendar and it's easily visible, easily referenceable for any point throughout the project. And then finally here, I actually have this. If you just click and drag a Google Drive link, it'll actually propagate everything and you can go in and actually just directly go into your Google Drive and have this available for clients. So at the end of the project, once you finish and you want to reference back to this at any point, it's an easy way to keep organized. If I open up this Milanote page in the future at any point, I'll have how I went about this entire shoot, the timeline, the different inspirations, mood boards, and I'll have the final deliverables easily referenceable at any point. It just makes my life really easy to be super organized and have everything available in one single location. If you want to try Milanote for yourself, it's available for free with no time limit. You can sign up using the link in my description below. So yeah, that's my step-by-step process of how I plan every single shoot, whether it's like a personal project or a client project, especially for client projects. I like to be as detailed as possible. But if you notice, it kind of only has the bare essentials. I feel like if you have too much information or too much going on in a board, it kind of starts to get me anxious and worried about shoots, and I just kind of get flustered. I try to streamline everything. So when I open this board up, there's everything that I need, but also there's not too much. I can just go right into my shot list or right into into my mood board, my inspiration. I can go to my calendar, my timeline for the day. You can also like delete anything that you don't need or that's not applicable to your specific shoot. Or of course you can add stuff that you need. I mean, you can add contact information of people on the shoot. You can add different versions of your edit as you move along through the post-production process. The possibilities are endless. So yeah, that was my whole process. If you have any questions on anything that I covered today, leave them in the comments below. If you're interested in my color grading, my sound effects, any sort of like assets, they're available in my store. Again, that'll be linked down below. Thanks again for sticking around to the very end. If you made it to the end of this video, leave me a comment so that I know you're a real one. Let's do Odyssey for this video. Again, templates linked down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.